Picture this. A man is walking through the city, but there's something different about him. He's not looking down at his phone, not scrolling through social media, not checking who liked his last post. He doesn't glance at shop windows hoping something new will make him feel better. He doesn't care who's watching or whispering. He just walks, calm, unbothered, collected. His presence unsettles people, not because he's loud, but because he's free. People can't figure out what motivates him. They can't read him. And that makes him dangerous. Not dangerous in a violent way. Dangerous because he doesn't need what everyone else is chasing. This man has figured out something that turns the whole system on its head. And that secret, that terrifying, world-shaking secret, is that he doesn't need approval, and he doesn't need more. That's it. That's what makes the most powerful people in the world afraid of him. Because they can't control a man who no longer needs the chains they use to control everyone else. Now, let's talk about you. Because right now, whether you know it or not, you're carrying invisible chains. You've been wearing them for so long, you think they're part of you. But they're not. They were placed there, slowly, subtly, repeatedly, until they felt normal. The first chain: approval. You've been trained to crave it. Think about how often you filter your thoughts before speaking, change your outfit before going out, or hold back your real opinions in case someone disapproves. That little pause before you speak or act, that's the chain tightening. That fear of being judged, laughed at, excluded, that's the system doing exactly what it was built to do. The second chain: status. Not just money, not just possessions. It's the need to prove that you matter. The clothes, the car, the house, the title, none of it is random. It's all part of a game where your worth is tied to what you own, what you look like, and what you can show. You're being trained to perform, to display, to constantly signal, look at me, I matter, I'm someone. And every time you buy something just to impress others, every time you work harder just to climb a ladder you didn't even choose, you're wrapping that chain tighter around your own neck. But here's the scariest part. It's not your fault. These chains weren't just handed to you. They were forged over years by systems that profit from your pain. The government doesn't need to watch you when you watch yourself. Corporations don't need to force you to spend when you do it voluntarily to fill an emotional void. Social media doesn't need to control your behavior when you'll shape it yourself to chase likes. This control isn't visible. It's psychological, it's emotional, and it's everywhere. Now imagine a man who sees all this clearly. A man who wakes up one day and realizes these chains were never real. Maybe he's hit rock bottom. Maybe he's just had enough. Maybe something in him breaks, not in a bad way, but in a liberating way. He stops performing. He stops pretending. He doesn't need the applause anymore. He doesn't care what anyone thinks of his choices, his words, or his life. He isn't bitter. He's calm, peaceful. And in that calm, he becomes unpredictable, unshakable, untouchable. Because the usual tools, shame, guilt, peer pressure, status games, they don't work anymore. This is what makes him dangerous. The system doesn't know what to do with someone like that. Why? Because the system only works when you participate, when you want what they sell, when you're afraid of falling behind, when you think approval is survival. The moment you stop needing those things, the whole game breaks down. Think about how many things you've said yes to just to be liked. How many times you've stayed silent just to keep the peace. How many dreams you've set aside just to be seen as normal. That isn't peace, that's prison. A quiet, polite, acceptable kind of prison. One that feels safe, one that feels familiar, but it's still a prison. Now, think about the man who walks out of it. This man doesn't escape with noise or rebellion. He simply stops needing the things that kept him trapped. He doesn't start arguments or prove points. He doesn't scream for attention. He just walks away from the game, and the game can't chase him because it only knows how to control people who are still playing. Let's look at what really makes him a threat. First, he can't be manipulated. Advertisers spend billions trying to figure out what you want so they can shape your behavior. But that only works if you still want. If you still crave validation, they can guilt you. If you want status, they can sell it to you in a shiny box. If you fear rejection, they can promise belonging. But this man, he wants none of it. You can't shame him. He doesn't care. You can't flatter him. He sees through it. You can't tempt him. He's not hungry. It's like throwing a net at someone who refuses to swim in your waters. It just falls flat. Second, he doesn't consume the lie that says you're not enough yet, that you'll finally be happy after you buy this, after you earn that, after you prove something to someone. He knows that trap. He used to live in it. But now he's stepped outside. He's realized that peace isn't a destination, it's a decision. And so, he doesn't scroll endlessly. He doesn't chase dopamine through a glowing screen. He's not trying to catch up to someone else's highlight reel. He's not hustling just to show the world how successful he is. He works when it matters. He rests when he needs to. He's present, unrushed, focused. And in a world drowning in distractions, that level of focus feels revolutionary. His money doesn't own him. Maybe he has a lot of it. Maybe he has just enough. But either way, it doesn't define him. He doesn't buy things to feel important. He doesn't compete with his neighbors. He doesn't wake up panicked about making more. His value isn't tied to his income. His freedom isn't traded for a paycheck. He'll never stay in a soul-draining job just for the status, because he's not interested in being impressive. He's interested in being alive, fully, truly, freely. And that, right there, is terrifying to a system that survives by keeping you anxious, distracted, and endlessly hungry. So, ask yourself, how do you control a man who isn't scared of losing what you threaten to take? How do you influence a man who doesn't care about your rewards or your punishments? You can't. And that's what makes him free. Now, let's go deeper. Because something else happens when a man stops needing approval. He starts thinking for himself. Really thinking. Not just repeating what others say. Not echoing the headlines. Not parroting the group. He begins to question everything. Every belief. Every system. Every rule he's ever followed, just because that's how things are. He challenges ideas that others accept without a second thought. He forms his own worldview, not one handed to him, but one discovered through hard reflection and honest observation. And because he no longer needs people to agree with him, he can speak without fear. He doesn't water down his words to be liked. He doesn't tiptoe around sensitive topics. He doesn't care if people call him crazy or weird or different. That's not his problem. His compass isn't external, it's internal. That's how revolutions start, not with riots. With one person daring to think independently. One person asking, why? And then someone else hears it and starts asking too. That's how the structure begins to crack. Not with noise, but with truth. And now we arrive at his deepest power. He embodies true freedom. Not the kind you buy. Not the kind that comes from options or luxury. The real kind. The kind that comes when you're not chained to desire. When you don't wake up every day feeling like you're behind, that you need more, that you're not enough yet. This man is enough. Not because the world gave him permission, but because he decided he already had everything that matters. He's not constantly reaching for more. He's appreciating what already is. He's not measuring his worth by anything outside of him. And that makes him unstoppable. You see, true freedom isn't about having more. It's about needing less. The rich man who panics when his portfolio drops isn't free. The celebrity who can't sleep without praise isn't free. But the man who sleeps peacefully, who lives simply, who walks into the world without needing applause, he's the rarest kind of human. He's dangerous because he proves it's possible to be happy without permission, without validation, without performance. And that shakes the foundation of every system built on insecurity. This idea isn't new, it's ancient. Diogenes understood it when he told Alexander the Great to move out of his sunlight. The most powerful man in the world offered him anything, and he wanted nothing. Why? Because Diogenes had already found the one thing Alexander never could: enough. He wasn't poor, he just wasn't owned. Lao Tzu said the same thing in another way. He who knows he has enough is rich. That single idea is explosive in a world that thrives on lack. When you stop needing more, you realize you were never empty. You were distracted. But there's a price to freedom, a real one. When you stop chasing approval, you lose belonging. When you stop chasing status, you lose validation. You might find yourself alone more often, misunderstood, judged. People will say you're arrogant or lazy or weird. They won't know what to do with you. because they've never seen someone walk away from the game and still be whole. That's why most people never take this path. It's lonely at first, but it's real, it's raw, it's yours. And slowly others notice. They see your peace, your lack of panic, your quiet strength. They wonder how you got it, and they begin to question their own chains. That's when the revolution begins. Not the kind with marches or flags, the kind that happens in minds, in hearts. One by one, people start realizing they're already free. They've just been convinced they're not. So ask yourself, what would change if you didn't need to prove anything? If you didn't need applause? What would you stop doing if you stopped chasing money? You don't need to buy things. You don't want to impress people you don't care about. What would happen if you let go of the game? Here's the truth. Every morning, you make a choice. You choose to keep chasing, or you choose to pause, to breathe, to think. You choose to keep obeying what the system tells you to want, or you choose to want less, need less, be more. You don't need more money to start. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need a decision. The cage was never locked. That's why this matters. Because we are living in the most manipulated generation in human history. Not through violence, through psychology. They don't force you to submit. They get you to want to. They shape your hunger. They manufacture your desires. But their one weakness is that it only works if you stay hungry, if you keep chasing, if you keep needing. The moment you say, "I'm enough," the system breaks. It can't sell you your own peace. It can't profit off your contentment. It can't manipulate someone who's already whole. So, no, you don't need to disappear into the woods. You don't need to burn your money or reject all comfort. You just need to stop letting the system define your worth. You can still have success, but you don't need it to feel like someone. You can still enjoy wealth, but you don't need it to feel alive. You can still have relationships, but you don't need their praise to feel valuable. You can be dangerous, not by fighting, not by yelling, by being free, by not needing the game, by walking through the world, whole, calm, and unaffected. You don't need permission to do that. You don't need approval. You don't need timing. You just need the truth. So, the question isn't if you can be that man. The question is, if you're willing to stop pretending you're not. Will you keep chasing the approval that empties you? Will you keep running after wealth that never fills you? Or will you stop? Will you breathe? Will you take back the one thing they're most afraid you'll realize you already have? Your freedom. The revolution doesn't need millions. It only needs one. Are you ready to be that one?